Here we go. Live right now. Facebook and YouTube. Let me pull up Instagram. There we go. So live on all the platforms I need to be on. Okay. So we give everybody a minute to come on, but I start on time. Y'all know I start on time. So I'm going to start right at 10 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. Talk about what we're going to talk about today. There's no way I could have not talked about this. I hadn't planned on doing Supergirl 2 Fridays in a row, but the trailer dropped yesterday. How can I not talk about this? So what we're going to talk about today is the Supergirl trailer, I Told You So. What we're going to talk about today is the Supergirl trailer, I Told You So. What do you mean by all that, Dave? I'm glad you asked. I mean, I've said it from the beginning that James Schmunn is not the right person for this job. His sensibilities as a writer and a director do not fit with the DC pantheon of heroes. If you understand anything about the difference between the big two, DC and Marvel, DC is about gods, demigods, semigods, cloaking who they are with the human civilian identity. God's trying to pass as people. Marvel is about broken people with problems that get powers and their lives don't get better just because they have powers. So Marvel is about the civilian identity and the faults and the flaws and the brokenness thereof. Then you add powers to it and all the trouble that ensues from that. DC is about the costumed hero, the costumed version. The superhero is what DC characters are about, and the civilian identities are just kind of a backdrop, just an excuse until they power up. That was the original idea anyway. So we know that idea has progressed some over time, but that's the basic idea. And Schmunn is not the right person to deal with our American mythology, our American myths, as you were, is Star Trek and superheroes. The American myths that we have are Star Trek, a vision of a better future of humanity and finding other life in space, and superheroes. Costumed metahumans, costumed aliens, costumed enhanced people doing things that only they can do, and most of the time trying to fight for the greater good, trying to fight for the betterment of society. Okay. And then specifically, when you talk about Superman, you're talking about someone who is supposed to be an inspiration. Okay. Part of the whole core of Superman's character is that he is an inspiration to those who know him, those that see him. Now, Christopher Reeve had it right on multiple levels. He didn't just have it right on a visual level, because we've had other actors that look like Superman. Brandon Routh looks like Superman. Dean Cain played Superman. So they got the look. Tom Welling played Clark Kent. You'll never get me to say he played Superman because he didn't, and he says he didn't. So don't get me started on Smallville. Y'all know how I feel about Smallville. That's another conversation. So it's not that we haven't, the first one, Kirk Allen, George Reeves, the biggest name before Christopher. So it's not, I'm cold, sorry. It's not that we haven't had other people play Superman, but Christopher Reeve's version, Christopher Reeve understood the mentality and the mythology and the purpose of the character. Christopher Reeve understood that Superman should always be viewed as a friend. That's why in the first movie, When Lois Lane, after he saves her from the helicopter crash, Lois Lane says, "Wait, who are you?" And he turns around and smiles and he says, "A friend." And there's an interview, you can look it up on YouTube, of Chris Reeve talking about Superman should be a friend. You should feel safe when he's around. You should know that justice is going to be done when he's around. Okay. So that's the bar. And I know we live in a time where people don't like bars, but oh well. I know we live in a time where people don't like standards, but oh well, they're a part of life. So let me say unequivocally that just because you don't like certain parts of life doesn't mean that they go away. I'm going to say that one more time. Just because you don't like certain parts of life doesn't mean that they go away. The only reason that we can give out Olympic medals in anything is because we have standards and because there's a bar. You understand that? I will repeat that. The only reason we can give out Olympic medals in any sport is because there are standards and because there's a bar. And if you're going to do the high jump, it's a literal bar you have to clear. If your sport, your Olympic sport is a high jump, you literally have to clear a bar. So in some cases, it's, allegorical. In some cases, it's literal, but whether you like it or not, there's such a thing as standards and there's such a thing as setting a bar. Christopher Reeve's version of Superman set the standard and it set the bar for the portrayal of the character, not just because of the visual, although he nailed the visual. He looked like Superman walked right off the page. And he nailed the flying. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. He nailed the flying because Christopher Reeve in real life was a pilot. So he understood aerodynamics. So he knew how to arc his body on the wires to make it look like he was really flying. That's why his flying looked so realistic, because he understood that. So not just the physicality of the character. Christopher Reeve also understood the mentality and the mythology of the character, that you should feel safe when Superman's around, that you should feel that he's a friend. Also, the only reason Superman is allowed to do what he does is because he wears that brightly colored costume. If he wore a more military cut of the costume, which I have said several times, he would be perceived completely differently. Just like in Man of Steel. Man of Steel's cut, it wasn't totally military, but it got rid of the trunks and it was darker hued and the cut was a little bit more severe. And so he's perceived differently when he doesn't have on the brightly colored costume and the bright red trunks, which comes from the wrestlers of the day when Superman was created back in 1938, when the trunks on the outside. That's where that trope comes from. Superman would be perceived completely differently if he didn't do that. If you didn't know that. And so there's a standard and there's a bar for the character. I know he didn't start out the way we perceive him now. I know he evolved, but he did evolve. Just like Olympic Games evolved. They're not the way they were when they first started. But Superman at this point, whether certain people like it or not, he stands for certain things. And why is that significant? I'm talking about Supergirl, because she also is from the House of El. She wears the colors, she wears the cape, and she wears the crest. Now, one of the things, for example, you can see it in the movie The Equalizer with Denzel. One of the point that Robert McCall makes in that first Equalizer movie is that all the dirty cops, they forgot what the badge meant. There it is again with standards and bars. They forgot what the badge meant. So they're out there doing shakedowns on local merchants. They're getting protection money from local merchants. They're doing so many different things. And so Robert McCall comes along to remind them And like the one guy that was working for the mob that he trapped in his car made him suck in all that car exhaust and just broke him down completely. He said, remember what the badge is for. You forgot what this was about. You're a disservice to this badge. Remember. So there it is again, the idea of a standard or a bar. And I'm trying to help you understand it is like that with Superman, even though it seems like most of the contemporary writers hate that. That doesn't make it go away just because you don't like it. Superman is still the standard by which all other heroes are met, which is why they always like to beat him up because they're saying, ooh, we beat up Superman. Why do they do that if he's not the standard? I just want you to think about that. How come they don't have those heroes face off against Captain Marvel? He's in the same weight class as Superman. How come they don't have those heroes face off against Martian Manhunter? He's in the same weight class as Superman, and Martian Manhunter has more powers than Superman. The Martians have more powers than the Kryptonians. Why, when they're introducing someone, why don't they have them fight Captain Marvel, Shazam? Why don't they have them fight Martian Manhunter? Why don't they even have them fight Kara? Have you ever thought about that? Because the mark, the standard, is beating up Superman. Now, y'all sound off in the comments. I see some people here live. Let me know you're here in the comments and give me some comments as I'm talking. I'll put them on the screen at the end because I definitely want to field your comments. So thanks everybody checking me out live. So if there's no such thing as a standard and there's no such thing as a bar, why do they always ensure that these characters fight Superman? Why do they always show him particularly getting beaten up? Why not Captain Marvel? Why not Martian Manhunter? Why not Wonder Woman? Although she's not quite in that weight class. But why is it always Superman? I'll tell you why. Because he's the standard for superheroes. That's why. He's the standard in terms of powers. He's the standard in terms of character. That's why Schmun's Superman the movie, Superman 2025, Superman and the Justice Gang, was so awful. Because that's not Superman, that's Butt Kick Man, because that's all they did throughout that whole movie was get his butt kicked. How can he have the nickname the Man of Steel if he's not more powerful than what we saw in that movie? So I will repeat my first point that I'm making here, that Schmun, James Schmun, is not the right director, scriptwriter, studio head for the DC pantheon of heroes, particularly not Kal-El of Krypton, Clark Kent of Earth, Superman, and his whole thing. So before we get into the trailer, I also want to show you, next point I want to make is, now everybody said this yesterday, and I mean everybody on Twitter and everybody on YouTube said this yesterday. So I'm not saying anything new, but I am going to repeat these statements because they're relevant here. And here it comes. James Schmun makes the same movie over and over and over again. I will no longer be fielding any arguments to the contrary. So if you want to argue with me to the contrary about this man, I'm giving you notice that you're wasting your breath. I will no longer field any arguments to the contrary of the idea that James Schmun makes literally the same story, the same movie, the same everything over and over again. He's a one-trick pony. There is no more arguing of that. One more time. There is no more arguing of that. There's Al. What's up, Al? I see you. We're going to get to that Star-Lord thing for sure. There is no more arguing about what I said. There's just no more arguing. So if you are of the mind to argue with me, oh Lord, I got my YouTube light and sunlight on me, so I'm in all kinds of shade. If you are of the mind to argue with me, you're going to be talking to the air. This man makes the same story over and over and over again. That is beyond argument. Save your breath, save your tweets, save your comments. I'm not engaging with that foolishness. It is beyond arguing. Do you have proof of that, Dave? Why, indeed I do. Guardians of the Galaxy, Creature Commandos, the Suicide Squad, Superman, parentheses, and the Justice Gang, Peacemaker, and now Supergirl. You say, no, it's Craig Gillespie that's the director, but Shimon has his fingerprints. He has his signature style. He has his sensibilities all over this, just like Feige does over Marvel. Every single thing with Shimon is the same. A quirky band of misfits and outcasts with different kinds of powers and perversion. It's the same thing every single time. I'm going to say it one more time. I am no longer entertaining arguments to the contrary. So you're going to be arguing with yourself if you try to build any kind of case that this man is nothing more than a one-trick pony. My first point is that he's not the right man for this job. My second point is that he ain't but a one-trick pony. He ain't got but one trick. Quirky band of misfits and outcasts with a 1980s or so retro soundtrack with the orange coat and the earbuds, the Walkman, and perversion. Shimon is a desecrator of all things good. He doesn't believe in good things. He doesn't believe in good people. And he has to take good things and make them as nasty and as non-altruistic as possible. Characters like Captain America and Superman are based on altruism, based on doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. You don't need fanfare. You don't need applause. You don't need a crowd. You do it because it's the right thing to do. Billy Batson, the reason he was the wizard messed up so badly when he chose Adam, Teth Adam, who became Black Adam. I mean, as soon as he got the power, he started breaking necks. The wizard really messed up. He really messed up when he chose Teth Adam. Like when you read it, it's like, did you put any thought into that? Because Adam's dark side jumped right out as soon as he got powered up. So the wizard took 5,000 more years before he picked another champion. And the reason he picked Billy Batson was precisely because of Billy's heart. Because Billy had been through a lot in his young life, and Billy had chosen not to get bitter or angry or vengeful. So Billy is kind of the anti-Bruce Wayne in that sense. Because, those are my two favorite characters, Batman and Captain Marvel Shazam. But Billy's response to the hardships of life was to maintain goodness in his heart. That is precisely why the wizard Shazam gave Billy all those powers, the powers of the gods with an altruistic heart. Not the mind of a child, but a pure heart. So you do have some characters that are based on that. I want you to notice that besides Captain America, there are not a lot of Marvel characters that are like that, because Marvel's not about that. But Shimon in particular, he has to take good things and pervert them, crap on them, desecrate them. Okay? Also notice that he inserts himself in everything that he does, like in Creature Commando's intro. He's got the whole animated sequence of him writing everything he does. He's front and center in all the trailers, all the promo, all the posters, everything. James Gunn, his name is bigger many times than the hero or the actors are. Have you noticed that? How many directors do that? I'm not saying it hasn't been done. That wasn't my question. My question was, how many directors do that? So not only does he have his sensibilities all over everything that he's done, which is the same thing over and over again, he's also plastering his face and himself and inserting himself in all the promos. So you see, you can see it all with the Superman promo. Okay, it's not about promoting the character or even the actors. It's about, look at this movie. This is my movie. Okay. Now, I couldn't watch Creature Commandos because I started to watch it, and then here he comes with these ridiculous sex scenes in an animated feature, and I couldn't. I don't want to see all that. That's not why I watch animated superhero fare. Okay, that's not what I want. Okay, that's not why I watch it. Um, Same thing happened, but with a Peacemaker in live action. Now, I have never watched Peacemaker because the character doesn't interest me. The character has never interested me, but I heard that right as a follow-up to Superman, right after Superman movie dropped, in the second season, Shimon starts the Peacemaker second season with a full frontal nude orgy. Full frontal nudity, and it's an orgy. And also, Shimon gets off on watching people make out with his wife, which makes him a cuckold. He inserts that sexual bent into everything that he possibly can. Okay. The fact that he even thought that Peacemaker and that type of presentation should be the follow-up to Superman, so he established a new Superman in a new world. Okay. And then he changes everything around, and the new Justice Gang is at the end and all that to get rid of the Snyderverse people. But then right after that, he even claims that Superman was pulled out of the theaters early for the sake of Peacemaker. Now, we don't know if that's true or not, but that's what he claims. So, in other words, all the momentum and all the energy was to be leading the audience right into Peacemaker after Superman, and it starts off with a full frontal nude orgy. Really? Is that what families? Is that why you take your kids to see a Superman movie? And so there wasn't in the Superman movie, but I'm saying that's the follow-up. Is that the thing to do to follow up with a character that's supposed to be one of the most wholesome characters that we have? Is that the thing to do? So I'm illustrating the point that, number one, Shimon is not the right person for DC in general, Superman in particular. And number two, he writes the same thing all the time. And number three, that thing that he writes is a quirky band of misfits and outcasts with long trench coats, with Walkman, with retro soundtrack, and perversion every time. Okay? Every time. So all of you that want to do the actually, they're all y'all that want to do that, you can have that. I'm done with that conversation because I'm gonna read the list again in case you missed it the first time. Guardians of the Galaxy, Creature Commandos, the Suicide Squad, Superman and the Justice Gang, Peacemaker, and now the Supergirl trailer. So you are literally going to be talking to the air if you try to actually me on this. Okay, now on to the Supergirl trailer itself. Now, I'm sad to say I can't play it because I'll get demonetized and I'll get copyright claimed. So sorry, I'm not going to play it. I'm just going to use stills and tweets. Okay, I really wish I could play it because I really would like to watch it with you and go through it, but I'm sick of copyright claims and I'm sick of videos getting demonetized and IDs and whatever. They shouldn't be, because it's supposed to be under fair use. Because what we're doing is making commentary on content that's been put in the public sphere. So we're not reselling the content, we're commentating. So anyway, that argument has been made, that argument has been done to death by many YouTubers, but they still copyright claim, and they still in some cases copyright strike, and they demonetize, and I'm tired of that. So I'm not actually going to play the trailer. We're going to be using stills and tweets, but we are going to talk about the trailer because everything in the trailer is significant and everything in the trailer is relevant. Okay. I see Airrock, Undead Nerd. Good to see you. Al's here again. So yeah, keep them comments coming. I'm going to talk about them at the end like I always do. So good to see you guys. Thanks for watching me live. I appreciate the support very much so. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the first tweet, which is echoing everything that I just said. And that's this right here. So that should be on your screen. Let me be sure it's on your screen so you can see it. And let me see if I can blow that up a little bit. So his quote was, he wants DC movies that are cool and different from each other to continue playing in theaters. A sly nod to questions about whether Warner Brothers movies will continue to receive big theatrical releases after being acquired by Netflix, which is not a done deal yet, by the way. I haven't talked about that yet because it's not a done deal yet. This is a story-based medium, really, Shimon said in Sunday at a private event previewing the new Supergirl trailer. We want stories to be in theaters that are cool and different from each other. Cool and different from each other? Cool and different from each other, which is his words. So, Steus Motor says, why does he keep making Guardians of the Galaxy? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I told you, I'm not the only person saying this. Everybody, Twitter was a buzz yesterday with this trailer dropped, and everybody on YouTube said the same thing. Said the same thing. Okay? So I'm not making it up. I'm not pulling that out of thin air, and I'm not arguing about it. One trick pony. Okay? One trick pony. Yeah, Al says smash that like button. Yes, smash the like button for me. Thank you so much. Okay? How does this trailer open? This trailer opens with one of the worst things I've ever seen in my days of loving superheroes. And I have loved superheroes since I was 4. This is literally one of the worst things I've seen in my days, and here it comes. How does the trailer open? It opens with this right here. It opens with Crypto peeing on an image of Superman in the newspaper. This is why I'm not arguing with people that are trying to justify this or trying to actually me. This is a desecration. There is no other way to take this image. Crypto peeing, he thinks that's funny. He thinks that's edgy. He thinks that's whatever. So going to the picture says, I miss the days when we had people in charge who respected and cherished Superman. Not what we're getting from James Gunn, truly shameful. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. This is one of the worst things I've seen in my lifetime of loving comic books and superheroes. Crypto peeing on the image of Superman in the paper, really? The message that sends, this is what I'm trying to get you to understand. So for those of you that haven't heard me talk about it before, you need to understand that I'm a father and I'm a teacher. So I'm always cognizant of the impact that we have on the younger generation. The impact that we have. See, because you can't, see, it's different when you are young. When you are young and you're still type of self-centered or narcissistic or just immature, we can cut you some slack on that because you haven't been on the planet that long. It takes a while. You have to grow into yourself and you have to grow into learning how to live your life. But once you become an adult, you're supposed to get to the point where your worldview is a little bit bigger than just how you feel. Schmund writes for an audience of one. He writes for himself. He writes for himself. He writes stuff that just appeals to him and him only, and clearly doesn't have the self-awareness and the awareness of the world around him to understand that when you start putting these kind of images together of the greatest superhero of all time, and you have that stupid little dog, which is not Crypto, by the way. Crypto is a different breed. That's Schmund's dog. Once again, I told you, self-insert. That version of Crypto is not actual Crypto. Crypto is a different breed. He's more of a beagle, but he's a mix. He's like a beagle, maybe mixed with what is it? Golden Retriever, but he's not that. That's literally Schmund's dog. Look up a picture of his dog and you see that's where he gets Crypto from. That's not Crypto. So when I saw this image, and this is what you lead with in the trailer, I felt the Palpatine rising. I felt the Palpatine rising. I felt the anger. I felt Palpatine says, yes, I can feel your anger. Gives you focus, makes you stronger. That's what I felt when I saw that. I was like, really? So not only did he disrespect the Man of Steel with an entire movie and turn him into butt kick man that had no emotional self-control and no awareness of his actions on the world. Do you see the self-insert? that Superman not understanding that you can't fly into another country and stop a war and save lives just because you decide to. That's going to be considered an international incident. You can't be Superman and not know that. I might give that to Clark Kent. I might give that to Superboy. I might give that to Tom Welling's Clark in high school, again, because of the age range. But this Superman, Schmun Superman, has been Superman for at least 3 years when we meet him. You can't be Superman. See, that's why the reversion with Marlon Brando did not unleash his son on the world with all that great power. Marlon Brando had the green crystal called the Superman at the age of 18. So at the age of 18, Superman told Martha he had to leave, and she said, I knew this day would come. He went north. The crystal built a fortress, and that's when he met the Jor-El AI, and his father spent the next 12 years instructing his son. And if you notice, if you go back and watch Superman the movie, Jor-El is actually talking to Clark in the rocket ship. He's talking to Clark when he goes from being an infant to a small boy by the time he gets to Earth. Jor-El is talking to him then. And then Jor-El intersects with him again at 18 and gives him 12 years of training. So by the time we see Chris Reeve Superman suited up, flying through the fortress, he's 30. That makes the most sense to me. That if Jor-El knew what Earth's yellow sun and Earth's light of gravity would do to Kal-El, he wouldn't just unleash him on the world without any training. So you never convince me that an adult Superman doesn't have self-awareness. But Schmunz didn't have any. You can't just fly in the country, but I was trying to save lives. Dude, you're Superman. So this is next level. You're going to pee on the image. This is just, it's desecration. It's absolute, that's why I'm telling you, I'm not arguing with anybody anymore about this. There is no other message that this image sends. See, now, I've talked to a lot of people about this. I've talked to my son about this, but there are people in this world where their whole game is like the curly shuffle, and their whole game is a shell game. People like that are people that say, don't think that what I'm doing is what I'm doing, because what I'm doing is not really what I'm doing. You're really seeing what you're seeing. Them kind of hustlers, you gonna get out my face. Does it sound like I stuttered? Don't think that what I'm doing is what I'm doing, because what I'm doing is not really what I'm doing. I'm not the one. So all of you people like that are going to try to justify this image, like I saw a tweet yesterday where the dude said, well, y'all didn't notice he's also peeing on the image of Supergirl, and missed the point. Here's the point. You are here. See, I'm not the one. I'm not the one. You're going to have to take your shell game. You're going to have to take your curly shuffle. You're going to have to take your, don't think I'm doing what I'm doing, because what I'm doing is not really, you're not really seeing what you're seeing, because what you're seeing, I'm not him. This sends the clearest message possible as to what Schmun thinks of Superman and what he thinks of us and what he thinks of his image and his legacy. And I don't know what other words to add to it, because the image speaks so loudly for itself. So I'm done talking about it. Okay. Next up, we're going to show you again, going to the pictures here, says the Supergirl teasers another gun cut and paste product. The long coat, the Walkman with orange headphones, the classic pop song is just sad at this point. This is why I'm not arguing with you. How can you even begin to frame your mouth or to get your fingers on a keyboard to try to make an argument that this is not the same thing over and over again? Now, what is true is that in the series that this movie is based on, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, Kara does have that coat, but the Walkman and the earbuds give it away, and the Blondie soundtrack, the retro soundtrack, gives it away. So it's just the same thing over and over again. Same thing over and over again. And another thing I want to show you is that the look of the trailer, it feels kind of like it's pea colored, kind of like it's covered, like colored like in bile. Do you understand what I mean by that? Like, okay, let me pull this up and I'll show you. So I'm not going to play this. This is from Geeks and Gamers, but I'm not going to play the trailer because I'll get copyright hit. So I'm just going to use that still image. Can you see the filter? The filter looks yellowish. It looks pea colored. Can you see that? And it's like it just feels nasty. Like after I watched it, I'm like, am I supposed to want to take a shower after watching a trailer? It's made of bile. It's kind of mariny, and it makes the space that she and Crypto are in look dirty and trashy, like they're in a really cheap hotel or like they're extreme hoarders. Did you notice how messy the space is? It's like Kara is not clean as a person. Now, everybody has a messy house sometimes, I understand, but there's a look that comes when you're a hoarder. There's a look that comes when you don't clean your space on the regular. And then the very filter itself is pea colored. I can't with this, y'all. I cannot. Okay. Then here comes the justification. Here comes this tweet from Variety. James Gunn says that he's excited for fans to see the direction that Millie Alcock Supergirl's characters goes in. So many times female superheroes are so perfect. She's not that at all. She's very imperfect, like male superheroes have been allowed to be for a while. All that is a bunch of lying word salad. Was Gamora perfect? Scarlet Witch perfect? Was Captain Marvel, Brie Larson, was she perfect? The whole point of Natasha Romanoff is that she is a conflicted character, that she was a proud spy for her country, but then they kind of retconned that a little bit with the whole Red Room thing in terms of turning the Black Widow program into making victims so they could blame a man. But the whole point of MCU Natasha was that she was conflicted, that she had a bunch of red on her ledger, to use the quote, that she wanted to make up for. So all this, what he's talking about, is I'm trying to find Diana, Wonder Woman, is not perfect. I know many times she's touted like she is, but no, she's not. Diana's not perfect. Do you want to know what some of Diana's faults are? Diana desperately wants to please her mother, and she's very broken when Hippolyta is disappointed in her. When they rebooted Diana into the new 52, Diana became way too aggressive. She's supposed to be an ambassador for peace, but then she became more Wolverine-esque, more like a brawler, if you will. So this is a bunch of word salad that is not true at all. Just isn't. So that's how he's, look, here's another image of Kara looking disheveled with that greasy hair. Now, if you know anything about anything, you know that greasy, that greasy hair is indicative of a few things. So, I'll just let you fill in the blanks. But that Somebody would see, because somebody, I will say this much: people that don't wash their hair that much don't really bathe, because what happens when you get around water or alcohol, your skin itches so terribly you have to wash. So people with dirty hair don't really bathe that much. That don't tell you nothing. That's all I'm gonna say on that one. But here she is again, a picture of her looking drunk as a skunk with that greasy, unkempt, unshampooed hair and some liquor. And I like the tweet right beneath it. Vanguard says, yeah, surely Super Kesha is the movie people want to watch. That's perfectly said. Perfectly said, because that is what this image, that's why I'm telling you, the old adage of when people show you who they are, believe them. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. That applies here. How can people not see that? It's beyond me. But anyway, now I'm going to take you to a different place now. Now this is just me, and so you may not have seen this, you may not have thought about it, but this is my perspective on this. Again, this is a still, Geeks and Gamers, because I can't play it. I realized when I saw this, because the first teaser has Kara kind of like sitting at a bus stop, and again she's looking disheveled, and then the ship shows up. When I saw this ship in particular, I realized one thing. We've seen this movie before, and we've seen it better. And I'm not talking about any of Schmun's movie. I'm talking about Serenity by Joss Whedon. That's what this image took me to instantly. And once again, it's a quirky band of misfits and outcasts thrown together in one ship, trying to get along, making their way through the galaxy. We've seen it with Firefly, but particularly the Serenity movie. So I know that the Supergirl movie is based on Woman of Tomorrow. I know that. And I read the book. I have the book. I showed you that last time. And I understand the different adventures that Kara has along the way. But every scene in this trailer looks like it came from Serenity. I just want you to think about that. I want you to see it now with that frame. And you can see that we've seen this before, and we've seen it done better. Okay? But that jumped out at me so quickly, and I was like, huh. Just think about it. When River gets activated, when Mal's up there making a deal and River gets triggered and she goes into fight mode, and just think about everything about Serenity. And you will see that just about every scene in this trailer is almost a straight lift from that. Except Serenity did it better. Okay? Now, again, in Woman of Tomorrow, the story starts out by Kara going to another planet and getting drunk because she can't get drunk under a yellow sun. So she takes a rocket ship and goes somewhere under a red sun and takes Crypto with her, which makes no sense because that means he's depowered too. So she didn't think that through. It was stupid in the book and it's stupid in the movie. But the focus of the trailer is her being lit more than anything else. The strongest image you have of Supergirl in this trailer is her being messed up. Her being three sheets to the wind. Okay. Now, next up in the trailer, we have this right here. We have this image. Let me pull this up. Oh, no, let me show you this one first. I like what John A. Douglas had to say, estrogen Star-Lord and Kryptonians of the galaxy. From the guy who brought you Bridesmaids Train Wreck, we all know one. Now, those of y'all who don't know, that's Amy Schumer. And that's, busted crypto, because that ain't crypto. That's discount great value crypto. But you can't tell me that this is not the vibe of this trailer. Okay? So let me move on to this right here. Because I do want to show this, because I not only want to show this, but I want to show the response to it. So if you know anything about Supergirl's backstory, her backstory has always been, she was in Argo City. Argo City survived the planetary explosion of Krypton, and then Most origins have it drifting in space. At some point, it's collected by Brainiac and shrunk down. Kandor City. In some places, in the original thing, it was on a chunk of Krypton, and so it turned into kryptonite. So they had to create lead shielding underneath it to protect themselves from it. So Kara's origin has always pretty much been rooted in the fact that her city was kind of split off from the main explosion. But then when they brought Kara back in 2004 under the Superman Batman title with those incredible Michael Turner covers, man, I really miss him. When they were doing Superman Batman with those Michael Turner covers, holy cow, that man was a genius. That's when they brought Kara back because they had Linda Danvers in Matrix before that. They killed the original. Remember, I told you that last time. They killed the original Kara in 1985. Then we had different versions of her. They brought back Kara Zor-El, the cousin of Superman, in 2004 with the girl that fell from the sky, the girl from Krypton. They kept the Argo City splitting off, but this time they retconned Kara to be older than Kal-El. So they retconned her origin to be that she was purposely sent to find him on Earth so she could raise him up because she was 12 and Kal was a baby. That's a retcon. And so they used that in Smallville. If you go back and watch Smallville, when they introduced Laura Vandervoort's Supergirl, when she first gets to Earth, she's looking for a baby. She's not looking for teenage Clark or young adult Clark. She's looking for a baby. So she goes to like all these playgrounds. She goes to school. She goes to all these places where babies or kids would be. Clark finds her and confronts her and makes her, fess up who she is. And, she's like, I'm looking for my cousin, Kal-El. And Clark's like, well, that's me. And Supergirl's like, what? They did the same thing with Melissa Benoit's Supergirl. They had her rocket ship get knocked off into suspended animation. By the time she gets to Earth, Clark is now an adult and older than her. Okay, so the splitting off of the Argo City is part of her original origin, with her section surviving the explosion of Krypton. Her being older than Clark and her being sent to Earth to raise Clark and look after him is a bit of a retcon, that she would be older and she would be looking for a baby cousin. So here in the trailer, we get a glimpse of Argo City being destroyed. So you can see it here. You see the people of Argo City. You see a close-up of Kara. Now remember, she's not powered here because it's under a red sun. You see the shields coming up. That's significant because whether we're dealing with Argo City or whether we're dealing with the bottle city of Kandor, the Brainiac shrunk, it always has to do with the city that survived the explosion of Krypton. And here we see basically Kara crashing out. So the tweet says, why is Supergirl always drunk? It doesn't make sense. Meanwhile, Supergirl, I watched my entire planet die. I had to bury my family, and it didn't happen in one day. The gods are not that kind. While I agree that that's a really good line, and while I agree that that's a really good kind of retcon to the story to give Kara kind of her own spin, I don't agree that that's a justification for her wanting to be lit all the time. Because first of all, this tweet proves my point. Why is Supergirl always drunk? It doesn't make sense. She's not always drunk and she's not always supposed to be drunk, but that's the image you got now, which proves my point. But then she's trying to say that the stuff that Kara went through justifies her being lit. And once again, that's the wrong idea. Superman, Kal-El of Krypton, and the House of El are supposed to inspire us to be better. Superheroes in general are supposed to inspire us to be better. I'm not saying they can't have down times. I'm not saying they can't have down moments, because they can. What I'm saying is that the whole point of the House of El now is that they were supposed to inspire us. Whereas they said in Man of Steel, Russell Crowe Superman said, they will join you in the light. They will join you in the stars. Marlon Brando's Jor-El said, they're good people, Kal-El. They're great people. They have greatness in them. They wish to be. They only lack the light to show them the way. See, so the mythology is that the Kryptonians are supposed to show us uh, uh, just a better way of dealing. And by putting Kara through this, I agree that it's a good story device to give her her own unique frame on losing Krypton. And I agree, those lines are really good. I watched my entire planet die, had to bury my family, and it didn't happen in one day. The gods are not that kind. I love those lines. I think that's well written, but used as a justification. Used as a justification. I don't necessarily agree. If one day my baby cousin was 10 years older than me, I'd never be sober again. Now he's older, belongs to a whole other family planet. I would crash out. Finally, a depressed Supergirl. Yes, I've been wanting to see this. The toll of losing your family. Planet, the loneliness that comes with it. She witnessed it all. Clark was just a baby. He didn't see it. Come down. Excuse me. When Kara got to Earth, Clark brought her to the Kents. Now, Clark had the Kents longer because he had the Kents as a little boy. No argument. Clark brought her literally to the same people that influenced him to become a hero, to become a servant. So don't give me this idea that Kara didn't have exposure to the same influence that turned Kal-El of Krypton into a superhero. So you can make the argument that she responded to it differently. I can get that, but I'm trying to say that I don't buy it as a justification for her being drunk all the time. I don't buy it as a justification for her not having to grow past her pain, because everybody has pain. Everybody has pain, and the point of superheroes and the point of the House of L is to show us a higher level. When you just, spit all over that like it doesn't mean anything, when you say, okay, it's just to be depressed and drunk because of what you've been through. Again, I don't think that's a full justification for everything that Kara does. But now it's being spun and interpreted like it is. And see, when you go down that path, then you can justify anything, which is what a lot of people end up doing. A lot of people end up justifying what they do because of the pain of their past. And in the real world, you can't really do that. You can't keep crashing out because you had a bad childhood. So like I said, maybe I can cut some slack with if this is about the transition of her processing that pain. But you also then need to include the fact that she was exposed to the Kents. You also need to include the fact that she has access to the Fortress of Solitude. She's responsible for, this is her response to what happened. And I'm not saying that that can't be justified, maybe in a short-term frame, maybe. But the way it's being spun is that it's now an excuse for anything she might do because I'm depressed, I'm hurt, I'm blah, 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 blah. So I'm not necessarily disagreeing with how it started. I'm disagreeing with where it's going. Okay. Now, next up, we get to finally what we've been waiting for. Now, we get a few brief glimpses of Ruthie and Krim of the Yellow Hills. Ruthie looks really good and sounds like I thought Ruthie would sound like. And then Krim of the Yellow Hills is got a lot of face piercings and just looks really creepy. Okay. But the other thing is that the whole thing looks like one big bar fight. Have you noticed that? That's why I reference Serenity, because the whole trailer, it makes it look like, now maybe it's just the first part of the movie because we know many things happen in Woman of Tomorrow, but this is just about the trailer. It looks like it's a big bar fight, but we get to what we've been waiting for, and that's this right here. Jason Momoa as Lobo. We've been waiting on that. Now, we've been saying from the beginning that Momoa was born to play Lobo, but I read recently that he's been saying that too. When he auditioned for Aquaman, he thought it was for Lobo. He's been wanting to play Lobo for the longest time. So finally, see, if this is done well, this is going to be up there with J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, because this is perfect. This is literally the right actor to make the character look like he walked right off the page. So if he gets Lobo's cadence right, the way Lobo talks, Lobo has a very specific cadence. Lobo has very specific slang. He has some common slang words that he uses. And so if he gets this right, this is going to be up there with, J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, someone that looked like they walked right off the page. I think this is going to steal the movie. I think however much of Lobo we get in this film, I think he's going to be the breakout character. I really do. I really do. So in the Superman movie, the breakout character was really Mr. Terrific. You can make a bit of an argument for Guy Gardner, though. Nathan Fillion as Guy kind of stood out too. But the best male character, the best hero in the movie was actually Mr. Terrific in that movie. He outshone Superman in his own movie. In this movie, I think Lobo is going to have that effect. I could be wrong. But I feel like that, because this is what we've been waiting on. Ever since we saw him as Aquaman, he didn't want to play Aquaman. He wanted to do this right here. So I think this has extremely great potential. I see you in the comments. I'm going to put your tweets on the screen in just a minute. I'm going to finish up and then we're going to go through your tweets. So the last thing I want to say before I get to your comments is this right here. Well, there's actually a couple of things, so let me just get to them. Okay. The first thing I want to say is this right here. Now, this comes after the last final kick, but what I want to kind of say is you have to sell superpowers in a superhero TV show or movie. You have to sell it. One of the reasons that Chris Reeve made the flying so real is because he knew how to arc his body aerodynamically to make it look like he was really flying. You have to sell that. One of the things Jessica Alba has talked about is the way she had to concentrate to make it look like Sue was really creating force fields, because obviously that's all special effects. You have to sell superpowers on the screen. When I watched this part of the trailer, Supergirl, basically in a melee style fight where she's just whopping jokers in a circle melee style, it just looked funny to me. And it's what I call the Buffy effect. What is the Buffy effect? The Buffy effect in fandom is convincing people that a girl that weighs maybe $1.25 on a good day is taking out dudes that weigh 200, 250, 300. So you're going to scream back at me, but she has super strength. She has super speed. That's right, she does. But what I'm saying is, it didn't look like that was, it looked like Millie swinging up against bouncers, is my point. So yes, Kara does have super speed and strength, same powers as Cal. And yes, she could be able to do stuff like that, but you have to be able to sell it. The scene that we always reference with Christopher Reeve is where he transforms into Superman right in front of us. It's in the first movie. Clark said he was going to take Lois out. So he just left the Superman and Lois is still swooning. Lois is still just, because they went on a ride and Can You Read My Mind? And she's just out of her mind with swoonage. Clark comes to the door and he's bumbling, he's fumbling, he's Clark. She goes to change her clothes. Christopher Reeve takes off his glasses, takes a deep breath, straightens out his back, stands up, and he's Superman. Oh my word. We still talk about that now because the physical acting, using a more nasal tone, using facial tics, being kind of bumbly, kind of stumbly, and hunching over, as well as those big horn-rimmed glasses. Chris Reeve used that to convince the world that he was Clark. But then in that scene, he became Superman right in front of us. The physical acting was off the chain. That's what I'm talking about. When I saw this scene where Kara was doing the melee fighting, it just looked funny to me. Now, that's just me. Now, you may have enjoyed it, or it's just my opinion. It just looked funny to me. You have to sell superhero feats because your mind, you got to, you got to do the suspension of disbelief, we know. But when you know how to sell it well, something about that makes it go over a lot better. Like one of the reasons we like Captain America, the Winter Soldier, is because the fight choreography was sold so well. We believe that Cap and Bucky were a bunch of super soldiers. We believe that Anthony Mackie was actually had on, a backpack with wings and all that. We believe that. They sold that. Now, I know some of it was CGI, but a lot of that fighting was real. A lot of that fighting was, stunt people and then sometimes the actors themselves, but they sold it. They sold it. The fight of Cap in the elevator against, the strike team led by Hydra agents, led by, Romolo. They sold that, man. They sold that. Cap looks like he's stronger than 12 men at once. Chris Evans sold that. So I'm saying when I saw this, and like I said, it could be wrong. It could look different in the context of the movie. But when I saw it, it just was funny to me. It was like the Buffy effect. It was like a girl that weighs a buck and a quarter on a good day because Millie Alcock is short. She's short and she's tiny, so she's kind of petite. So I know Kara has super strength. I know Kara has super speed, but what I'm saying is you got to make it look like that. And for some reason, this just struck me as not that. It was the Buffy effect. Some little girl taking out dudes that outweigh her by twice as much, really. But maybe it'll look better in the movie. So, I'm willing to concede that maybe that's just my personal bias. Maybe it's just me that saw that. Okay. And now we get to the thing that happened right before this, the final nail in the coffin, the thing that is the final punch. And here it is right here. It's this quote. This to me was on the same level as the P from Crypto in the opening part of the trailer. Because Supergirl says this right here. Superman sees the good in everyone, and I see the truth. Oh, I felt the Palpatine. The Palpatine came back. I did anger. See, before I was curious, then I was disgusted. Now I'm circling anger. Because what Shimon is saying in no uncertain terms is that Superman is some type of corny, campy, naive, kind of goofus, some type of doofus, some type of, because he believes in the good in people. What further proof do you need that these people don't believe in goodness, don't believe in the goodness of people, don't believe in altruism, because they think this is some kind of dig? This is an insult. He sees the good in everyone, or he's just a goofy, lovable, big old superpowered sugar bear. But I see the truth. I'm the real hero. I'm the real edgelord. I'm the real Krypton. But see, you want the real deal. You want the real 411. You want what's going on. That's me. Not like my big doofus cousin. Shut all the way up. Oh my goodness. This was so disrespectful. All the other iterations of Superman have Jor-El telling him, it is the fact that you believe in their goodness, and I believe in you, son. It is the fact of your leadership that's going to help humanity become a better version of themselves. Marlon Brando Jor-El said that. Russell Crowe Jor-El said that. And here they come with this right here, making fun of one of the core elements of Superman's character, that he's some type of naive schmuck that's some kind of, farm boy that doesn't know any better, but I'm edgy. If I had a red lightsaber right now, it would be on. This is so disrespectful on such a fundamental level. Just a few tweaks, could have completely changed the vibe of that line. And yes, I am a writer, so I think like a writer. Just a few tweaks. If she said Superman sees the good in everyone, but I have to learn to do that, changes everything. Kara acknowledges her pain. She acknowledges her bias. She acknowledges the fact that she's more pessimistic than her cousin. But she says, but I'm trying to get on a journey where I can be like that. Maybe one day I too can see the good in everyone. Changes everything if she had said that. Superman sees the good in everyone, but I'm still learning. That's cool. That's funny. That's edgy. And, it gives a little bit of hope. But when she says, and I see the truth, that is contrast. In other words, in contrast to my big dumb doofy cousin, I actually see the truth about people. And just know. So here's the last thing I'm going to say, because I want to leave you with this line, and then I'm going to take the comments, because I'm getting a lot of good comments. Y'all know I love your comments, so I'm going to put them on the screen. We're going to talk about them. But here's the last thing I want to say. Let me put this image back up when I say it. Yeah, let me put that image back up. Here's the last thing I'm going to say, and then we're going to field your comments. Here it comes. Can you hear the John Williams theme playing over this? Can you hear the John Williams theme playing over this? Can you hear the John Williams theme playing over this? Can you hear that? Can you hear that playing over this? And with that, I'm going to go to your comments. Okay. All right. Got a lot of them. Okay. Al says, Rep. DT, you're right. Supergirl is just power up Star-Lord. She is. This is Kryptonians of the Galaxy. This is Guardians of Krypton. This is whatever you want to say. Kryptonian Commandos. That's all this is. I'm not familiar with the director writer for Supergirl. Not sure if they're woke and would rather push a Ray Skywalker or a typical we got to break these characters to build them up approach. Well, seems that there is both, because if it was just the latter, that we got to take broken characters and smash them and desecrate them and then build them back up, which has been the vibe for the last 10 years. If it was just that, there wouldn't be the direct digs at Superman. But you can't have the crypto peeing on Superman. And you can't have Kara saying that he sees the good in people, but I see the truth. Those are direct attacks on Superman's character. Those are direct digs at him. Okay? So that's wokeness. Remember that one of the core elements of wokeness is that men are bad. White men in particular are bad, but men in general are bad. And that anything that the men do, the girls can do it better, and that the girls are the real heroes. Kate Bishop is the real Hawkeye, that kind of thing. Okay, Carol Danvers is the real Kree Warrior, the real Marvel, that kind of thing. That's wokeness. That men are bad, men need to be humiliated and put down, and that the girls are better. That's wokeness. What was the line from She-Hulk? I'm better controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you do. Everything about She-Hulk was that Jennifer was better than Bruce. Everything. That is wokeness. Okay? So it's not just break them down to build them up. It's men are bad. Mm-hmm. Apparently, the director is very stylish. So let's see. As DG says, gun will have control, so it may affect the director's style. Again, the trailer is already pea colored. It's already a bar fight. It's already Supergirl looking like she's in a room that hasn't been cleaned in a millennia. That don't tell us nothing. I said it last week. You only have one chance to make a first impression. That's why I don't listen to people that do the curly shuffle with their words. Don't think of what I'm doing is what I'm doing. What I'm doing, not really what I'm doing. Yeah, okay. Take that on a date with you. Just go out with someone. Just go out with someone and burp in front of them. A real loud burp. Go out with someone and have unsanitary eating habits. Go out with someone and just, what are they going to do? They're going to be, oh, you don't get another chance to make a first impression. The first impression we got of Shmon's butt kick man was him broken and bleeding in the snow. That's the first thing we saw. First impression we get of Kara is her drunk in a hoarder's room with crypto peeing on Superman in the newspaper. You don't have to see the whole movie. They done told you what they're going to do. Okay? This is my concern. The gun bros are insufferable. They can't take any criticism. Well, I don't disagree with that, but I have to word this carefully. Within each segment of fandom, there are fanatics on a deeper level. They worship at the cult of a director, the director worship kind of thing. Snyder has that like we've never seen, and Gunn has it too. But I told you before, I don't subscribe to the either Snyder or Gunn or whatever. I don't subscribe to that. That doesn't make any sense to me. I like a character or I don't. I like a presentation or I don't. I like a comic book or I don't. I'm not. You know what I mean? I really like James Cameron, but everything he does is not great. So inside of every segment of fandom, and you know what started that? Now, if no one's ever told you what started that, let me make it clear to you what started that. What started all this was Twilight. That's what started. That's what made shipping come from fan fiction to the forefront. When they started arguing about should Bella be with, what's his name, with Battinson, should Bella be with Edward, or should Bella be with the werewolf? They had commercials of girls with bats fighting each other. I'm not making that up. Look that up on YouTube. They had commercials of girls with bats fighting each other. That's what started this, was Twilight. That's what started making shipping a conversation, because if you think about it, before Twilight, shipping was not in the conversation. I just want you to think about that. Not love interests, because most major heroes have had love interests. Peter Parker had a lot of love interests. Superman had a lot of love interests. Batman had a lot of love interests. Okay, so that wasn't new. It's the shipping, the crazy shipping part, the Tumblr fan fiction. Twilight was the movement, the phenomenon, the event, the movie series that made that a part of the conversation. And now people are always talking about who they're shipping. That's what codified it into the mainstream. That's also what began the progression into the cult of directors. That you start, see, that came into its most extreme peak with Snyder. That there are people that just worship that man. I don't understand why, but they do. They just worship that man, and they worship his version of the DC universe. But I mean, it's fanatical, it's extreme. So I won't say that I disagree with saying gun bros are insufferable. I will say that there's a section of that in almost everything now. Just find you somebody who likes The Last Jedi. Find you somebody that likes Rian Johnson. Find you somebody that likes Ray and watch how they talk. See, just use myself as an example because I can talk about me. I'm not talking about other people. I'm talking about me. I'm objective enough to understand the faults and the flaws and the holes in the mythology of my favorite characters. Batman is self-righteous. Batman has an unlimited healing factor because Batman's career would be about as long as a football player's, if not shorter, but just because of all the punishment he has to take. There's no way, even if you're a super genius, you could actually master all of the disciplines that Bruce Wayne masters between the ages of whenever he leaves Gotham to whenever he comes back, and even with intense training. So I get that. I get that. Batman and Superman are both self-righteous. I get that. Hulk has become way overpowered to the point he's kind of ridiculous. And don't get me started on Doomsday. But the point I'm trying to make is that I love these characters, but I don't worship them, and I don't worship certain writers, and I don't worship certain takes of them. And I'm objective enough to know that they have some faults and some flaws, that there's some things about them that don't quite jive. There's some things about them that we just have to accept to make the mythology work. But there's a segment now in every corner of fandom. Look at what happened with Star Trek Academy. I'm thinking about doing a live stream just on that Star Trek Academy trailer, because that trailer, I did a tweet about it, where if you ever want to know what woke was, that's it in a nutshell. I'll probably need to do a live stream on that. But there's a corner of that now in every fandom: Doctor Who, Star Wars, Star Trek, Indiana Jones, the MCU, the DCU. I mean, you name it. Every corner of fandom now has these fanatics that are extreme, but now they're also run by extreme people that hate the characters and hate the audience. So we've had to deal with that for like the last 12 years. And we know who started it. We know who started it. They were just in the news this week. We know who started that. Okay? Not a world that is different as the world we live in now, the Superman universe, or the real world. Certain directors have their strengths and should stick with it. Yes. Mindless action movie, Michael Bay. Weird, quirky characters, Gunn. Action adventure, Spielberg. Stay in your lane, directors. Now, that's it in a nutshell. That's it in a nutshell. Play to your strengths. Don't you understand there's nothing wrong with that? Why do we have positions on a football team? If everybody can just do everything, why do we have positions on a football team or a baseball team? Why? Why? You know why you're on first base? Because you got that stretch. You got to be able to keep your foot on that bag. You got to stretch to catch that ball. Why are you a quarterback? Because you have to understand the plays from every possible angle. You got to be able to make plays. Why are you a running back? Why are you a wide receiver? Okay, why? Why are you a kicker? Because if you're the kicker on an NFL team, you don't have but one job. Kickoffs, field goals, extra points. You don't have but one job. You kick. So there's no shame in staying in your lane. And so I couldn't possibly agree with this statement anymore, that we would get better content if we had directors that continually played to their strengths and kind of stayed in their lane. There's nothing wrong with that. But then it's when you mismatch directors who have certain sensibilities with the content or the character that they're mounting, that's when you get mess. It should have been Lex or another villain or even a president. Instead, he does like that. The Crypto P, if Crypto P'd on Lex, that actually kind of would have been funny, but not Superman. I'm convinced a lot of these Hollywood writers, directors flat out hate comic characters. Yes. So they morph them into their own vision and how they want them to be. Yes, that's it exactly. Couldn't agree more. Could not possibly agree more. They hate them. You can't tell me that who is it? Russell T. Davies don't hate Doctor Who. And in fact, he screwed that up on purpose, but he's on camera laughing. They screwed that up on purpose. They did the same thing in Star Wars. Who was it that was on camera laughing? They get on camera laughing because they're going to stick it to the chuds. Jessica Gao for She-Hulk, she got on camera laughing. You trolls, the troll inside of me, I knew how you're going to react, all that. So this is right. They hate these franchises. And do you know why they hate them? I'll tell you why they hate them. Because they didn't get to sit at the cool kids table when they were in high school and they never got over it. Oh, Dave, that's reductive. Oh, Dave, that's immature. It's more complex than that. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because those are the only kind of people that think that way and say stuff like that. Don't you know that when you feel good about you and you feel good about your creations, don't you know that you can make your own? I know my live streams are always deeper than you think they're going to be because I get off into other stuff. But if you're a creator, or if you just feel good about yourself as a person, don't you know you can make your own friends? If this group don't like me, okay. You don't change your music, you change your audience. And nothing wrong with my music. You just got to find who likes it. When you feel good about yourself, when you know that you have quality and value that you're bringing to the table, you can always make your own. If you don't like certain characters, then you can make your own. Liefeld was just on there talking about Deadpool yesterday. And he was thanking the fans for how they've embraced Deadpool and how Deadpool has come a long way from when he first invented him and how, he first sold out and a whole bunch of stuff. You can make your own. That's why I have so much respect for all the original creators, for Stan Lee, Ditko, Kirby, Bill Finger, Carmine Infantino, Otto Bender, Gardner Fox, just all of the old school guys, because they gave us all these wonderful worlds. Okay, so until you get to that level, why are you spitting on their creations? You didn't make that. You didn't do that. See, but when you feel good about yourself as a creator, when you feel good about yourself as a person, if this group at the cafeteria don't like you, you'd be like, well, that ain't the only table in the cafeteria. This girl don't like you. This boy don't like you. They're not the only fish in the sea. It's different when you feel good about yourself. It's different when you know what you're bringing to the table. It's different when you know what you can do. That's why I'm making my own comics. I have a comic called the Cryo Carito. It looks like Cryo Carito, but it's actually Cryo Carito. That is a Greek Japanese word that means cold warrior. And you know what the storyline is? I'm not going to give you all the spoilers, but the storyline is it's a planet that's a heat planet. So they live under a cool shield and everybody has cold powers. But they're all different kinds of beings that have the cold powers and they're celebrities. They're like a celebrity team. The name of that comic is Cryo Carito. That's on my Amazon link on my Twitter. Because I just want to make my own. I don't have to desecrate stuff just because I don't like it. I can make my own. Okay. 100% they definitely love the money, but not the characters and the fans. They hate the characters, they hate Superman, but they hate us too. They hate Luke Skywalker and they hate us too. They don't just hate the characters, they hate the story world, but they hate the fans. The only people that act like that are people with an axe to grind. The reason you have an axe to grind is because some little girl hurt your feelings when you're 15 years old because she didn't want to go out with you, and you've been mad for the last 20 years. The only reason you have that kind of axe to grind is because the plastics wouldn't let you sit at the table. You can't sit with us. And you've been angry ever since. Don't tell me that they make the people that do that. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, because if you felt good about you, if you knew what you could do, you could realize you can make your own. You can make your own group. You can make your own clique. You can make your own comics. You can make your own characters. You can make your own heroes. You don't have to pee on somebody else's work. I said what I said. Okay? That origin story, Superman 78, was so well done. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. That's why we reference it so much, because it makes the most sense. It puts Jor-El in a good light. It puts Superman in a great light, because Jor-El had sense enough. If he had sense enough to research what a yellow sun would do to his son, he had sense enough to prepare his son for all that would happen, and for the fact that so many Earth eyes are beyond him. You can't be Superman and the whole world doesn't know who you are. So Jor-El prepared him both how to use his powers, because Superman studied physics, geography, many disciplines, life and death, life after death, theology. Superman studied all that between the ages of 18 and 30 in Superman the movie. But also, Jor-El made him aware of the impact. In the Donner cut, Superman is talking to his father, and he said, "You can't understand what it feels like." And Jor-El's like, "Well, you're revealed to the world. It's done now. So now you got to do this, this, and this." And Clark is like, "Why?" He's like, "Because if you don't have a secret identity, they're going to call on you 24 hours a day. You ain't going to never get a break. If you don't have a secret identity, you're going to lose sight of who you really are. So you need something to balance it out." I mean, it's so brilliant. So brilliant. That's why I love it and reference it so much. Yes, ET, I get that a lot too. Just be patient. It's world building. We'll eventually get to the characters we know and love. That's what I'm told. I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid. Exactly. I told you that's the Curly Shuffle. That's what Snyder said. That's what Gunn said. That's what they all say. We have to break them down. We have to make them not be who they are. Superman has to snap necks. We're going to shoehorn in the death of Superman. Batman's already old and bitter. We got to do all this. But don't worry. Before we're done, they're going to be the bright, optimistic heroes that you know. What was it? Was it Man of Steel or Justice League? Justice League ended with the dystopian Superman, where in Justice Superman, where Joker had tricked Superman into killing Lois and his unborn child. That was Jared Leto's Joker was in that. Remember that? That's where that was going. Where's the bright hero we know and love? No, you can't fool me with your foolishness. You hate that Superman doesn't kill. That's why you made him snap necks. You hate that Superman would sacrifice his secret identity to save his father. So you had his father do the stupidest thing in the world and let himself die in a tornado when Clark could have saved him at the blink of an eye. The arguments I've gotten into with Snyder Bros about how they said Clark didn't have the super speed and you don't know that. I mean, the mind games, the pretzel twist you got to do mentally. Clark Kent, Kal-El of Krypton, would not have stood there and let his father die, even if it meant exposing himself to the world. He would not have done that. That's why you have a scene where Clark saved a busload of kids, and Clark turns to Jonathan and said, "What was I supposed to do? Just let him die?" And Jonathan says, "I don't know, maybe." Shut all the way up. You hate Superman and you hate what he stands for. Simple as that. Okay. Word, we will never see our characters the way we want on film. Read comics, people. I kind of resigned myself to that. I really wanted that to be different a while back. But I kind of resigned myself to finally understanding that movies like Superman the movie, movies like Captain America the Winter Soldier is like a fluke. They're flukes. When we get movies like that, they're like flukes. I also really like the first Avengers 2012. When they all get together, Captain America's costume was really lame in that, but the movie itself was really, really good. I really liked it. That's also the last time, if you notice, that we have a happy ending. Everything gets dark and dour and bitter and cynical and worse after the first Avengers movie. Go back and rewatch them. You'll see what I mean. So I kind of resigned myself a while back to the idea that the truth of the matter is we're not going to get the Bronze Age versions of heroes. We're not going to get we might get Silver Age goofiness. We're going to get everything starting from Dark Age, which was Dark Knight Returns, and then we're going to move into Marvel Now Age with the replacement characters, with the diversity and inclusion characters. And we're going to move into, New 52, which was a stupid Shazam character in Rebirth. We're going to get that. We're going to get that. If we had ever gotten Carol Danvers as Ms. Marvel, we love Carol Danvers as Ms. Marvel and Binary and Warbird. But that ain't what we got, is it? We got that obnoxious Captain Marvel. Okay. Rest in peace, Turner. Yeah, Turner was great. Only like the light to show them the way. Right, from Superman the movie, one of my all-time favorite movie lines. That stuff was epic. Donner brought in script doctors to punch up the script, which is why we got lines like that. Mario Puzo and them, Mankiewicz and them, to get that dialogue to that level. What do we have now? He sees the good in everyone, but I see the truth. He's a Pollyanna. He's a doofus. He's naive. Okay. I think it would be amazing as Lobo. I agree. Couldn't agree more. We can't wait. I'm telling you, I think he's going to steal a movie. I really do, because this is the role he was born to play. When you match up the right actor with the right role, I mean, it's just magic. Lobo is apparently Stan Lee's favorite DC character. Yeah, there was a tweet yesterday, and I told you, when tourists come on my timeline from now on, I'm going to post that clip of the newscaster who put her foot in her mouth so many times. It's classic. You know that newscaster, you know what she said? They were talking about Marvel superheroes. She said, "Who's your favorite Marvel superhero?" "Mine is Superman." And remember the tagline. I love the tagline. With great power comes great responsibility. Have a good night, y'all. Remember that. Could you be any more wrong? So when tourists come on my timeline now, because yesterday somebody tweeted out that Momoa went from playing Aquaman to playing an unknown character. An unknown character. That Aquaman, he was one of the big seven, you know, in the Justice League. Aquaman to playing an unknown character in Lobo. And comics Twitter was like, what? Unknown character? Lobo has even appeared in live action before. He was on the sci-fi TV series Krypton, which is about Kal-El's grandfather. The sci-fi TV show Krypton was about Jor-El's dad and everything that happened and making sure the timeline stayed intact so Superman would come to be. They had a version of Lobo there. Okay? So, unknown character, that's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. Lobo will probably, keyword probably, be the highlight in the movie as long as it's Lobo and not Momoa. Now, that's true. He's got to play him well, but if he gets the cadence right, Lobo talks a certain way, he gets the cadence right, if he gets the slang right, it'll be fantastic. Any Lobo reads you recommend? Yes. Let me put those together, though, because I want to be sure I give you the accurate issues. I collect a lot of trades, too, nowadays, because when I start an arc, I want to read the whole arc, and I want to have everything in one place. So I've got my boxes and my bags of individual stuff, but I get a lot of trades just nowadays. Rita's Omega Man appearance is the first meeting, which is when he got his now iconic look. So do you think the visuals here look as bad as Street Fighter flick visuals? I'm still processing that Street Fighter trailer because part of me is just kind of stunned because they're going goofy with it. And I'm like, is that the interpretation that we needed? I'm sure some people will like it, but I personally wanted to see something a little bit more grounded, a little bit more taken seriously, but that's because I have a treatment for a Street Fighter movie that I've written in my head and I've written it out, and I've actually been wanting to see it for years. And it involves a more intense take on their mythology. But this looks like it's leaning more in slapstick and camp and all that. I'm like, so I don't know. Valkyrie and Ragnarok is better written than this new Supergirl. I never cared for her in the comics. And Valkyrie and Ragnarok was awful. So I don't mind the music in the trailer. I'm a fan of that era. I am too, but it don't have to be in every movie it's in every movie that Shimon does. It don't have to be in every movie. Batroc the Leaper was in it. He's a perfect stunt extravaganza character. Yeah. Winter Soldier is one of the peak Marvel movies, might be the best out of all of them. I think it is. I can't think of a movie better than Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Terrible dialogue, awful dialogue again. Majority, not all, they hate these characters. That's right. Taking digs at Superman. Okay, Jerry Conway, Tony. But I still see the light in them, such as their work. I can't help but get excited when I see they wrote an issue. That's me seeing good in people. It's possible to separate art from the artist. It's possible not to agree with everything someone says or does, but still enjoy their work. That's possible. Now, everybody draws their lines in different places. I know that. I know that. Remember, I did that whole live stream about Neo gaming. So I know that. It's different for different people, but it is possible. It is possible to not agree with someone or not like someone, but still enjoy their work. Okay. Superman got R. Kelly though. Ooh, that's just nasty. Truth, Justice, wherever. I'm surprised Captain Falcon didn't say that. So that was on the Supergirl poster. Truth, Justice, whatever. More desecration. When Superman got rid of his classic line, Truth, Justice, and the American Way, which came from the George Reeves TV show, everybody was in an uproar. Everybody's like, how could Superman not be American anymore? And they also got rid of it in Superman Returns, Truth, Justice, and all that stuff. That's a line. We need that line. Okay? All right, so that's most of the comments. So thank you so much for giving me those comments. So let me know, if you didn't watch me live, let me know in the comments beneath this video what you thought of everything that we've said today. Do you think that the Supergirl trailer is indicative of how the movie's going to be? Because I do. Do you think that the Shmun is a one-trick pony? Because I do. Do you think that they have no respect for the source material and no respect for the fans and don't even understand the impact of platforming that version of Kara and let your daughters and your granddaughters and your children seeing somebody with the Superman shield and the crest be a drunken, angry, crashing out lush? Really? So let me know in the comments below what you think. Thanks so much for tuning in. I think I'll be here next week. I know I'm taking 2 weeks off for the holiday break. So I know I'm going to be off Christmas week, and I know I'm going to be off New Year's week. I think I should be here next Friday, but if not, I will let you know on Twitter. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter. Like this video, please share it, subscribe to my channel so you can know when I drop new stuff. DD2 Comics Chat, out.